Welcome everyone to another performance clinic. Today the topic is building custom solutions on top of Dynatrace using the Dynatrace APIs, also featuring Versio IO. Thanks Matthias Scholze, the CEO of QMETHODS, for being with us today and for giving us an insights on how we use the APIs and for being such a great partner. Thank you so much.
Hello everyone from my side.
All right, so we have a really packed agenda. So I want to get going. I want to remind everybody, so this is kind of the rough agenda that we had, and I guess I just flipped over it. So let me quickly go back. So I want to give you a quick overview of the data that we have with Dynatrace that is collected by the one agent, the APIs, how we can get started, some common API use cases, and then Matthias is going to dig deeper into the stuff that they have built with Versio on top of the Dynatrace data, right? And it's, as I said earlier, before we got started, the recording here, it's really phenomenal on what use cases you kind of, as you said, you're unlocking the potential of the Dynatrace monitoring data. I really love that. If people want to find more about Versio, there's obviously more later, a live demo about versio.io is where you can find more. But I promised you, Matthias, I will go through my part of the slides in about 10 minutes, so I'll try to keep my promise here. So folks, if you have Dynatrace, so what we do is we bring light into the darkness, right? We install the one agent. You can roll it out through the different means, fully automated, obviously, in your on-premise, off-premise cloud or PaaS environments, whether it's Kubernetes, OpenShift, or maybe any other environment. The one agents will automatically deliver 5 key dimensions of topology information, events, metrics, traces, and behavior. So end-to-end topology, top-down, and also left to right, as I call it, horizontal and vertical. Events such as log events, deployment events, metrics, obviously, we're big on metrics, traces, our pure breadth technology, and then also user behavior. Now, what the one agent really does with this data, we are feeding into what we call the Smartscape model. The Smartscape model is the true live dependency map. And we'll see later on from Matthias on how you can actually leverage that in really cool ways outside of Dynatrace as well. What we have with Dynatrace is not only Smartscape with the data at the core, we have our Davis AI engine, our deterministic AI engine that makes sense, of all the data. And what I want to, kind of highlight here is that I know, Matthias, I'm always moving your mouse around and I click. I can see your mouse moving. Okay, no worries. What we do have is not only the Davis AI engine at the core, but we also understand that there is more use cases around the Davis AI engine. There's a lot of stuff that you want to do with Dynatrace. That's why we have a set of APIs that you can either integrate in a pull or push model, or we also have different integration options. But to give you some idea, we have APIs where you can ingest or feed more data to Dynatrace because not everything can be seen with the one agent. We have APIs where we can pull out data from your cloud environments. We can use APIs to trigger remediation workflows such as ServiceNow, Ansible, or also our open source project Captain. We have API integration options where you can push information to Jira, to Slack, or the other way around, let's say from Jenkins to Dynatrace whenever you do deployment. Or you can also pull or push data from your business system. So there's a lot of things that are possible. Right? Now, the key thing is the better you integrate Dynatrace with your ecosystem, with everything around, using the APIs to feeding more data in or pulling data out, the better the answers get and the better the actions that you can execute. Right? And that's the idea. So we want you to integrate Dynatrace as good as possible into a complete tool suite and then also leverage the data with maybe custom solutions like Matthias and team has built. So how do we get started with the API? Very simple. First of all, a reminder, when you install the one agent, you get a lot of data out of the box, and it looks, I always say, it looks very sexy in our UI, and that's great. But most importantly, everything you see in the Dynatrace UI, you can also extract through the API, or you can push additional data. In order to use the API, you have to start in the Dynatrace menu on the left. You can scroll down to settings and then integration. And then there's a sub-item that's called Dynatrace API. You have to create a token. And with that token that you can give privileges on what the owner or the bearer of that token can do, you can then execute the APIs. We have a Swagger UI on top of Dynatrace UI. I think that's a common standard anyway these days, using a Swagger UI. Matthias, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's a very, yeah. We provide that both for the environment API as well as the configuration API. The two links that you see here, one is for the documentation. The second one is actually pointing to a GitHub repository of our product manager that is leading the whole of the examples out there on how to use the Dynatrace API. All right. So there's a lot of cool use cases that we can implement with Dynatrace. If you heard me talking in the past, I'm talking a lot about how to integrate Dynatrace in your CI/CD, how you can integrate it in your operations, how you can automate monitoring. So there's a couple of use cases that we talk about when we talk about ACM, autonomous cloud management, and all of these use cases, whether it's automatically provisioning dashboards, automated tagging, integrating into load testing tools, or also, talking about integrating Dynatrace in your CI/CD pipeline or self-healing. That's all possible with APIs. I want to give you some specific examples, and I think I just switched over one of the slides, but to give you some concrete ideas. For instance, pulling data from Dynatrace. An example from Citrix on how they have built chatbots to pull data out of Dynatrace, and where you can pull data from Dynatrace through a chatbot, asking the chatbot, tell me my services, tell me my key metrics. This can all be implemented with the APIs. The next one would be an integration into your CI/CD tools, acting as automated quality gates. Same thing here, whether it's Jenkins or Captain or Bitbucket or Conqueror or Azure DevOps pipeline, you can query the data through the Dynatrace APIs after every build, after every test you run, and they can make automated decisions on whether this is a good build or a bad build. The next use case that I have for you is, let's see, pushing events. That's also important if you have any type of CI/CD pipelines or any deployment automation tools. What you see here on the left, on the top is Jenkins, on the bottom I think is extra release. You can tell Dynatrace through a push event when which tool deployed which particular build into your ecosystem, so Dynatrace knows about it. Now, why would you want to do this? Because the more data, remember, you tell Dynatrace, the smarter Dynatrace AI becomes. So like in this case, in case Dynatrace detects a problem, not only does Dynatrace Davis tell you, hey, there is a problem and here's the impact, but it can automatically correlate and tell you all the deployment and configuration changes that happen through your automation. I think that's pretty powerful. Another thing is extending Smartscape. So Smartscape out of the box comes through the one agent. Now there's certain maybe devices that we don't see, a firewall, a load balancer, some native devices where we cannot install anything, like a one agent on it, but we have APIs where you can also define these custom devices and put it into the Smartscape, including dependency information and also including metrics. And again, the reason why you want to do this is because you want to make Davis smarter. So the more Davis knows about the environment, about what else is going on, all the other components, the better the root cause analysis is. So for instance, if Davis detects a service level problem, it will automatically see the deployment event as we saw earlier, but also looks at all the different metrics that also came in from your different custom devices. All right, last but not least, and this is kind of my segue over to Matthias. I just showed you how to push or extend Smartscape, but another option is to pull Smartscape data, and that's one of the use cases that Versio is actually, what Versio is doing, is pulling Smartscape dependency information out of Dynatrace. We have a very rich Smartscape API, so you can really pull out applications, services, processes, hosts, also the dependency information from top to bottom, but also left to right, so which service talks to which service. And this enables a lot of really interesting use cases also outside of Dynatrace. So before I hand it over to Matthias to actually show us more about what you do with Versio on top of the Dynatrace API, I want to remind everyone there is the chance for you to ask questions. Use the question feature in GoToWebinar. I will now cut my video stream because I think now I'm handing it, as again, over to the main speaker here. But Matthias, I will moderate, and hopefully we have a lot of questions coming in. And as we are pushing over to the live demo, I will then also cut your video stream so we get the full screen. And now, Matthias, tell us what the power of the API is and how you can unlock the potential and how you did it with Versio.
Perfect. Thank you, Andy. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone from my side. My name is Matthias from QMETHODS, where we develop a software product called Versio IO. At QMETHODS, we believe that the treasure trove of monitoring data is not yet fully exploited. Our motivation is to unlocking the value of your IT monitoring data, and especially Dynatrace with its high quality real-time monitoring data is an excellent basis for Versio IO. Let's talk about the idea behind Versio. We use Dynatrace API to get topology, event, configuration, and time series data. And in the third step, we historicize the Dynatrace data in the Versio database, because monitoring system typically forget the data again. For example, you cannot data mine the previous name of the host after changing the host name. It's a typical example, and with Versio and the historized data, it is possible to see the previous name again. We can then implement a relevant solution based on this historized monitoring data. In this outer circle, you can see some Versio solutions, cost allocation, governance, compliance. You can see CMDB functions like data browsing, operation diary, analyze inventory, and so on. And I hope there are some exciting topics for you. Let's talk about what added value Versio IO can deliver for you. What could be your motivation to use Versio IO? Perhaps it's interesting for you to have searchable and browsable monitoring and configuration data with the complete history, the change history. The next thing is you have automated revision safe and auditable data. It's very important for banks and assurance to have the revision safe data for EZB and other control units. You can automate the governance compliance checks. I will show you later some examples to minimize business risk. You have functionality to set up a configuration management database, real-time. On the other side, you have the historic view in your CMDB, and you can allocate your IT costs so that you can provision resources or services to your user. And we have possibilities to optimize resources in kind of hardware, software licenses to reduce your IT costs. Now let's talk about integration scenarios between Dynatrace and Versio based on the Dynatrace API. Versio IO imports continuously data mine monitoring data via the Dynatrace API and historize it in the Versio database. Based on this information obtained by the Versio IO solution, events can then be sent back to Dynatrace via the Dynatrace API. With this Versio IO events, we support the Dynatrace artificial intelligence to perform better root cause analysis. Okay, that's enough slides. Now it's time to change to our live demo. Okay, let's just go to live demo so we can see the solution based on Dynatrace API. Versio is a purely web-based software application, and we provide Versio as software as a service or in an on-premise variant. Okay, I make a login, and and the landing page is our dashboard. In Versio, you act always in an environment. It's comparable to the Dynatrace tenant. In the initial dashboard, you can see some statistics to get a faster overview over the environment. On the left side, you can see all entities that we have stored in Versio.io. The Dynatrace experts will see known entities from Dynatrace, but we can see also another entities, for example, SSL certificates or file configuration. That means Versio has some own importer to extend the topology information or config information, extend the Dynatrace data. The high number of events instance that we can see here is typically for monitoring systems. In the middle, you see the number of changes in the last 7 days per entity, and in the right statistic we see the number of violations identified by the governance and compliance rule checks that we see later. Let's start with the first solution, the instance viewer. He gives us access to any instance and any change to them. You can filter instances by entity or groups of entity. So we can filter for Dynatrace entities, or we can filter for non-Dynatrace entities. Non-Dynatrace entities are imported via the Versio.io importer, and I told you that we so can extend the data model from Dynatrace. Here we have now the possibility to go deep in an instance to see the instance and all changes of this instance. For example, you can see here anomaly detection configuration for a database, and now you have the possibility to see the whole configuration at this moment. This actual configuration, and you see here the blue one, that means the value of this attribute changed in the last change. We have the green one, he added new attributes, and we have the red ones that was deleted. You see the metadata of this instance. You can see that is an anomaly detection. The first gathering was in July, the last update was today, the last change was in October, in 1st of October. And we have the possibility, we have a direct link that you can go in Dynatrace on the right position. Oops, I have to log in again.
And that just as you're logging in, first of all, there's a couple of questions that already came in, and one was on the importer. So I think, but you answered the question anyway. That means you have the ability to import also other data, not just Dynatrace data, but also other data.
The main part, 80 or 90% of our data comes from Dynatrace, especially because the quality is so high, and then we extend this data with own importers.
Perfect. And maybe as a follow-up question, that means if somebody builds, I think this question comes from another partner, if we have built an extension and push custom devices into Dynatrace, can you also see these custom devices?
If the API from Dynatrace allow this, then it's easy. Then we can gather this information from Dynatrace, or if it's possible, then we can write an own importer to take this information directly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the API exposes custom devices as well, and
Perfect.
therefore, yeah,
Perfect.
that's awesome. Cool.
The best way is for us to go about Dynatrace, and only the importer we use to extend the model of Dynatrace if a customer has special requirements.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Good. Voila. Okay, now we here see the current attribute values, we see the metadata, and in the button we can see the timeline with all changes. That means you have colored if they are new, deleted or modified. We have filter options, show us only the attributes that changed, or you can see every attributes, the complete object, and that you can do for every change about the whole life cycle of this object. You can see here this instance we gathered first time in the middle of July.
Yeah, Matthias, this is phenomenal. This is a great way. How do you do? And again, this is not my topic of experience, but this is great for what's it called, governance or auditing, right? You basically see exactly when what has changed. Right?
Yeah, this is exactly governance, compliance, and revision safe information. That is a topic, and this is a base of Versio.io because all or the most solution from us works on the historic view. Yeah, and that's why it is so important to understand what we do here with the instance history viewer. Okay.
There's just one more question that came in from Pete. Pete is asking, how often do you pull the data?
You control it by yourself. Actually, we do it all 30 minutes.
Okay, perfect.
Mm-hmm. Good. Then we have also a full text search. That means you can search for all over all instances that and changes that you have in your system. Actually, I believe we have 1 million changes in our database, and you can drill down in this to this service, and we have here another feature where you have the possibility to see the topological view. You can see what instances are around these services. That means you have here in the service description, the Dynatrace guys know this, the information, you can see here the references to process groups, to services, to applications, and so on. And all this information we take over here in this topological and give you visualization of it. And another word for our instance history viewer, we beautify the attributes, we optimize the attribute value viewing because, for example, Dynatrace store all data in UTC and we make it human readable, or here we have the references and you have every time the possibility to click on these references and make a drill down, and we jump now to a process entity. Yeah? That's what we can do with the Versio.io and the historization function. And now I can go over to the next use case. This is a operation diary.
Actually, Matthias, if I can quickly interrupt, because there's one question that fits here. The question is, how long do you retain the data?
We store the data for the complete lifetime. We will never delete it.
Okay, so that means all historical data, you always store it. Awesome.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And
is there something that you have in mind where you can say at some point, maybe if the data you have to maybe keep it for 3 years or 7 years based on some regulations, but then you can delete it afterwards. Is this something you had in mind?
Yeah, you can do that. Yeah, every time you can delete instances and changes, but it's not the normal case. Yeah, you can set up in your environment that the data should live 3, 4, 5, 10 years, and after then you can delete it. But normally we collect all data, not all from Dynatrace, but all data that we collect. This part we store about the whole lifetime, and we don't aggregate it or something like this.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, now we are in the operation diary. The operation diary shows you all changes in your IT environment or monitoring configurations. It is designed to help administrators see all changes. The way he can see that, for example, a colleague has made change for the configuration of the management zone or the anomaly detection configuration. And you see here on the right side all changes from this day, the day before, and so on. We see the last 14 days. We can change it. For example, see the last 8 days. And you can see that a lot of entities, you can see here, we have an entity, for example, an event. This event has 180 changes on 143 events. Yeah? That means there are some events with more than one change. And that you can see in this visualization. And you can see that some entities are every time are in changing the hosts, events, problems, processes, and so on. That's why you have the possibility to filter for a special group. The operation diary group with entities are important for an administrator. And so you can see, for example, okay, we have today 3 problems with 4 changes. We see a database schema change. We see yesterday as an SSL certificates with changes, and so on. And every time in Versio you can drill down to the instance viewer again. For example, let us show the database schema change. And here we have, there are a new database with new tables and attributes, and so we can collect this data. And you have every time the possibility to do a drill down. Okay, let's go over to the next solution. Next solution, governance and compliance. It will be possible to validate rule-based states of instances and their changes. Violation can be tracked from the beginning to the end. That means we have here a rule set. I open this rule set. You can see in the top the configuration, the metadata. You can see each rule. One rule, here's an example for a naming convention for a host. It's defined with a regular expression. We see another rule, a naming convention. Perhaps you know that it's possible that a host has different names on a host itself in VMware and in Dynatrace, and we believe it's not a good practice. That's why we have this rule to verify that and make a violation if it's true. Or here we have a rule where we can detect an SSL certificate that is only valid less than 1 week. Yeah? And the most important thing for us are security rules. Perhaps you know the National Vulnerable Database from the National Institute of Software Technologies. It's an open database, and this database provides information about software security problems. For example, here the vendor, the Apache with a product HTTP server, and the special version has problem in a software security area. It is really good described here, and you have the possibility to validate it in Dynatrace in Versio based on the process data from Dynatrace. And the result is a detailed table about all violations, where you can see that this violation, for example, is still active, but we have also violations that they are finished because the violation ended, and we have the possibility to visualize the violations timing. That means we can see here, for example, this is a naming validation from a host, and this host has a wrong name. He don't match our regular expression, and a colleague from me changed the name in the beginning of September, and that's why we have a complete documentation when the problem is started and when this problem it will be end. You can see also other violations that are still active, and in the end we have another example. We have an SSL certificate, and this is 1 week for the expiring day, and that's why here comes up a violation to help the administrator to renew this certification. Yeah, and that's with this solution you have the possibility also to revision safely and auditable data, what's going wrong in your environment. You can define own rules, and these rules can check attributes, can check relations between changes and instances, what you want.
Hey, okay. Matthias, let me quickly jump in here, because actually thanks for making that last comment, because this was one of the questions that came in. So the rules that you have, and first of all, again, very impressive on what you actually do on top of the Dynatrace data, because as you said, this is data that you pull out through the API, or at least 95% of the data is Dynatrace data. It's Smartscape data that you mainly pull out. Now, the question that I think you just answered is you can define your own custom rules, correct?
Yep. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep. The rules that you've shown earlier, do these come from you? Are these from a best practice database? How does this work?
Okay. Here we have, for example, these are example rules for live demos and so on, naming conventions for hosts. Here we have an SSL certificates because this rule, a lot of people like this use case, and we have, you can see it here, 74 rules defined. The most rules are security rules from the NVD database. I believe actually the NVD database has 7,000 security rules, and we offer you possibility to import these rules directly, and you can define your own rules.
Perfect. That's awesome. I think that answers the question. Another question, because I just have your I have you interrupted anyway.
No problem.
Somebody was asking, you mentioned this in the beginning, this is, I think it's a SaaS solution right now. Are you keeping it as a SaaS only solution, or do you also envision an on-premise or managed solution that, similar to the Dynatrace managed solution?
Yeah, we are similar like Dynatrace. We offer now software as a service offering, and we plan to support an on-premise version in the end of this year.
Oh, that's perfect. That's probably good to hear for our customers that run Dynatrace Managed.
Yeah, we have a lot of customers. They run Dynatrace Managed, and the most reason for it is data security, and that's why Versio must be the nightmare of managed Dynatrace Managed and can't be a cloud version. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Another question?
Well, there's one question that I was just about to answer in the question box itself, but the question that came in is, are these rules correlated with Dynatrace One Agent Discovery? And basically, I mean, that's what it is, right? You base your data based on Smartscape, which is the data that comes in from Dynatrace One Agent. So yes, to answer the question, Tiago, the rules are always evaluated against the Smartscape data. That means when you're rolling out new One Agents and the One Agent sees new hosts, processes, services, applications, then these rules will automatically be applied to everything that is seen by Dynatrace. And that's the magic. And then I'm not sure if you have maybe joined later or when you joined and part of this birth clinic, but Versio is actually continuously pulling the Smartscape data and then also showing you what has changed over time and keeps a history, and you can even then detect, you can write rules, and Matthias, correct me if I'm wrong, but you can write rules where you basically detect changes as they happen.
Yeah, that's true. And we have the possibility that we can, each violation that we gather here, we can send an event to Dynatrace, and that can help Dynatrace to realize a better root cause analysis.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Next thing. The next solution analyzes an inventory. You can perform statistical analysis using dedicated entities. We prepared this functionality for some entities. It's not useful for every entity, and I will give you an example what you can do on the host level. Perhaps you will analyze what is the virtualization degree in your data center. Then you can give you information about your hypervisors that you use in your data center. You can see here KVM. We have physical hosts, QEMU, and VMware. And for example, I choose the OS type, and now we can see, okay, we have 4 physical hosts with run Windows, and it means if we want a higher virtualization degree, then we have to update these machines. And now it's a question, which machines are this, and we can take the host name, and now we see, okay, these are the names of the physical hosts that are the names of the operating systems on a physical host, and if you want to get a higher degree of virtualization, then you have to virtualize these machines. This is one question that you can ask. We use here pivot table that you know from Excel. And another use case is get an overview about what you use. It's inventory functionality. For example, you can use what kind of operating system I'm using in my data center, what version are running, what kernel version are in use, and so you can detect, for example, okay, I have Linux running on my system, and now I can't see. Normally I can see that kernel versions are different, but they choose update last time. That's why I can't see here and result what I would show you. Okay, this is analyzes an inventory, possibility to analyze about time and about entities, and we come to the next solution, the CMDB topology. We support only application topology. We plan also to support topology in kind of management zone or tagged instances and so on. That means now I can show you looking for an application that we has defined in Dynatrace, and you can see the complete system architecture of this application. We colored it. You see the host, you see in orange the processes, you see in the yellow color, these are the services that you use, and in the top is the application. And it's a little bit like a Smartscape, but in Versio we have the historicized data, we have the possibility to go in the past, and we can see how was the system architecture 2 months ago or 3 months ago, etc. Yeah, and this is the basis to understand how an application is built up in your infrastructure. And this is a point to go to the next solution, the cost allocation, because the topology is a base for cost allocation based on the application topology. Okay, this allows you to charge hardware and software and service cost to the departments and end customers using it. The mediation to be invoiced instances can take place on the basis of topology. For each entity, you can store corresponding price models. The price can be calculated including instance attributes, for example, the number of CPU cores or the memory size and so on. That means you can see here the billing area, yeah, the billing for the whole year, the billing for each month. You can select this month, and then you can see the rating for each day. This calculated rating for each day, and you can see which entities are invited in this calculation, and you see the rating details, and you can drill down deeper and deeper to the last level, and the last level is the measure on a time frame of 1 hour, and we can measure, for example, the Dynatrace consumed host units, we can measure host base costs, CPU cores, and so on. You can define your own cost types with own euro, dollar, or unit values, whatever you want. Yeah, and here you can see in our rating and billing model that we have a rating granularity of 1 hour, and we can have a billing period of 1 month. And so you can take 1 month and can go to the cost allocation, and you get something like an invoice. We don't call it invoice because we will transfer this data to a finance or ERP system that then can create the invoice. But here we get the base data for an invoice that we can do for this application.
This is all extremely impressive. There's a lot of positive feedback I want to just tell you from the audience here through the questions. Yeah. Also, just being conscious of time, Matthias, I think we have a couple of questions that I want to handle later on in the Q&A. I'm not sure how much longer you...
I believe that's okay for today. We show some use cases, all use cases based on Dynatrace data, and I hope you can recognize the power of Dynatrace API with Versio solutions, and many thanks for your interest in Dynatrace API, and many thanks to Andy for inviting us to present Versio as an example for using the Dynatrace API. Now it's time to ask questions.
Exactly, and I have a couple of questions before we go to the questions. Matthias, can you do me the favor and quickly switch back to the slides? Because I think we have like 2 or 3 slides left that I want to just highlight.
Mm-hmm.
And while we're waiting for that, folks, we have about another 10 minutes for Q&A. There's a couple of questions I have in the list, but if you have any other questions, put them into the question feature. That would be great. So, this is the time now where we actually have Matthias live, and we can ask all these questions. All right, perfect. Yeah, slide 23. So if you want to know more about how to extend Dynatrace, there's a lot of material out there, whether it is through the documentation or through the university. I also have, as you can see here, 6 different YouTube tutorials that I've created over the last year, talking with different folks on how we can use the REST API for extending Dynatrace, pulling data, doing all sorts of things. So be reminded, there's a lot of stuff out there on the YouTube channel that you can go get to the short link, or you can also get it on Dynatrace University. If we can, let me see, here we go, next slide. Quickly, there's a lot of other stuff out there as well. If you don't have Dynatrace yet, obviously make sure that you get your trial. There's user groups, there is perform events coming up, and there's also training material. So there's a lot of links out there with a lot of information. And last but not least, before we go to the Q&A, Perform is coming up. Before Perform is coming up, I think there's 2 more Perform goes. Today actually is Milan, tomorrow Mexico City, and then on Thursday is in the Benelux. And then the big event that is coming up is first week of February in Las Vegas. And what I want to highlight here is Monday and Tuesday we have the hands-on training days, where we have now actually we've doubled the amount of hands-on training days. So we have Monday and Tuesday. So if you want to register, if you want to join us, make sure you also look at the hands-on training days. There's a lot of great stuff out there. All right. Now, Matthias, it's time to turn back on the cameras.
Okay.
Because I think some people say we have faces made for radio, but I think actually we can prove them wrong. It's not. That's joke. I think we are okay looking fellas, right? So I cannot turn on your camera. You have to turn it on yourself. Okay. Hopefully you'll find the little button. There's a couple of questions here, and I have it on my other screen here. So the first question, with all your security and governance data that you have, would it be possible, I assume we can pull your data also out through a REST API, correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because the use case...
We have also an open API like Dynatrace, and you can use it, for example, to build your own importer, or you can use it for build your own reporting. You can use any reporting tool to gather data via this API.
Perfect. The next question is, how can I get Versio? How can I get signed up? Maybe you want to open up the web page so people can actually see it.
You can go on the Versio site, and there's a free trial possibility. We create your own environment, and then test it for yourself. Mm-hmm.
And then it just probably give you an API token from Dynatrace with certain privileges.
Yes, it's a tenant name and a token. That's really
okay. Mm-hmm. Perfect. Coming back to you can extract the data through an API. That's great. Christoph comes up with the idea of, would it be possible then to integrate Versio in my CI/CD for automated compliance checks? So when I'm pushing a new build and I have a new deployment, and then Dynatrace sees the data, and then Versio does its analysis, and then I can even pull Versio information, say, did you find a new compliance problem? Is there anything that is odd? And then we can report that back to the pipeline.
It's a question of time. We gather the information only all 13 minutes from Dynatrace, and I believe we are too slow for a pipeline yet. I heard that we get next year new possibilities in Dynatrace to bring our own code to the Dynatrace platform. Then we can push data, and then we are more faster, and then it should be possible to integrate in the CI. But I believe yet it's not helpful. It's too long.
Yeah. Perfect. The other question Letizia was asking, she says she's new to Dynatrace. So in case you're new to Dynatrace, just as a reminder, what Matthias showed you today is what they built on top of the Dynatrace data, extracting data from Dynatrace through the API. And while the API, your UI looks somewhat similar, it's a separate product, right? That is pulling out the data. Just an information in case you want to know more about Dynatrace, its capabilities, how it works, how the AI works. There's a lot of information out there, so let's make sure. But what Letizia was also asking, are you already pushing data? I think you had it in the slides. Are you pushing data to Dynatrace, or I believe, are you planning on pushing also what are the things that you find back to Dynatrace?
We're planning to implement this. I believe in November we will be ready to send events back to Dynatrace. For example, governance compliance violations and such things.
That's perfect. So that means even on an entity itself, right? I mean, because you have the entity ID, you can send the violation directly back to, let's say, that process, that host.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's cool. Chat says it's a great testimonial to the unlimited potential of the Dynatrace API. Chat, I agree with you. Yeah. Then Christoph is asking, from the cost perspective, the cost calculator, do you keep historical cost information data? Because what if like for EC2, right, the prices change over time? Do you store that data also historically?
We have cost model or pricing models, and you can simulate each year again and again, because the data don't change in the future. Yeah, you can, for example, now build a pricing model for 2018, and you can simulate it, and you can look, it's a good price or not good price. Should I take the same pricing model in 2019 or 2020? The changes are not changes a second time, because the change is a change, and that's why you can every time recalculate all things that you build on top of the historized entities.
I think what Christoph is also specifically asking, think about a cloud provider like Amazon or Azure, right? They have an API where you can pull in their data at any given time. Yep. And I think the question is, does your cost allocation allow an integration with these cost vendors to pull in the data and then basically give you exactly the amount of data, cost you have to the cloud vendor?
Okay, our target is not to be AWS recalculation engine. That's not our target, but we see another use case. You are an IT service provider, and you support services like applications that you execute for your customer, and you do it in your own data center or in the AWS or in Google Azure, and about all you have an umbrella with a cost model that is unique about all three variants, and that's, I believe, is our use case.
Perfect. A question came in, and I think I know the answer, but how do you visualize containers, serverless, or Docker containers or serverless or PaaS containers? I would assume you visualize it the same way as Dynatrace obviously detects it, right?
Yeah,
I mean, that's
we do it in the same way like Dynatrace, and we have the possibility to put another data in the Smartscape, and we have the possibility to go in the past. That's a little bit more like the Smartscape because we have the historic data. Yeah.
Yeah, I really like your historic view, especially if you have a very dynamic. Consider, I mean, my background is big into load and performance testing and capacity testing. When you run the test and you increase the load, you can nicely then also see how did the environment change over time as you add more load. Does it scale correctly and things like that. That's really cool. I want to give you the last question because then we're kind of running short on time. But I want to remind people, if you have more questions, there's always the option, obviously, to reach out to Matthias and team if these questions are specific to Versio. I can encourage you to sign up for it, try it out. As you can see, it's amazing what people can do with what you've done with the API. If it's Dynatrace related, go to answers.dynatrace.com. This is where you find the whole Dynatrace community universe, like all the experts, and they can answer questions pretty much everywhere on all the different topics. The question that came up is, what are you planning in the capacity section? I think you had a section on capacity, and I think it says work in WIP,
It's work in progress. Yeah. In this section, we want to optimize the usage of CPU cores, memory, storage. That is the first focus that we have here. Yeah, that means we gather time series data from Dynatrace, but the granularity is not so high, and so we can say, okay, on this host, CPUs were not more used, like 50%, so we can save 50% cores on this host. In this level, we start with a capacity optimization.
Perfect. Hey, thank you so much. I also want to actually end it with, I want to read it out loud. I appreciate what Matthias's company has done. Very nice work. That was one of the comments that just came in.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah. And Matthias, I'm pretty sure we'll see each other probably at one of the performs. Are you going to be in Vegas?
I plan to be.
Perfect. Okay. And yeah, having that said, thank you so much. And I'm pretty sure I will have you back in the... There's a lot of stuff happening here. So we'll give people an update and show them what else is possible with the data that Dynatrace has. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Tschüss. Gute Nacht. Gell?